FTX is misappropriating user funds. They were taking user funds to do other things. I think the trigger.
如果你喜欢本系列影片，请暂停一下，帮我们点个赞，并且按下订阅，支持我们做更多类似的影片。
I think the trigger was like a week ago. There was a CoinDesk article. My team says, "Well, hey Cz, we still have a lot of FTT coins. Like what? Should we sell it? Sure, why not?" So the next day, there was a big transaction reported by Whale Alerts, saying that like $580 million worth of FTT was transferred to Binance.com. And my team's like, "Cz, this is our transfer." I was like, "Well, really? You sure?" Like, yeah, he's sure. There was discussions in the community. And should we be transparent about it? It's like, yeah, sure, we should be transparent about it. So I just wrote a tweet in a few minutes. But I wanted to explain, like, how do we have this much, right? So we can't just have $580 million worth of FTT all of a sudden. We got it. We didn't buy it from secondary markets. We got it as a transaction of our exit, equity exit out of FTX a year and a half ago, which was publicly reported. So I said that, and then I didn't know my phone will blow up like over the rest of the evening. So, and I also didn't know, like, no, the second day I said, look, I didn't know this is the, I think the word we used was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's before Sam SBF called me 24 hours later. I thought it was just causing a lot of waves in the Twitter, in the community. 24 hours later, Sam calls me and says, "Hey, Cz, can we talk?" Okay. I thought he was going to do an OTC deal, right? I thought he was going to ask, "Hey, Cz, why don't we do an OTC deal? Then we can put all the negative comments out, then confidence is restored." I thought he wanted to do that. But instead, he just said, "Look, we have much bigger troubles." I said, "Look, we don't want users to be hurt, and we want to protect the users." So the deal, to be honest, I can't comment on any specifics on the deals, but from our perspective, the deal did not make sense from a number of fronts. From a financial perspective, is a big hole. From new users, FTX, we have very high overlap. We cover all the regions they cover, and they have much less users than us. From a technology or product perspective, I think we have a superior product. They don't have anything that we don't have. So our original intention was let's save the users. But then the news of misappropriating user funds and especially US regulatory agencies' investigations, we're like, okay, we can't touch that anymore. So, and then we said, look, and then as soon as I understood we couldn't touch it anymore, I said, let's make that announcement as quickly as possible because we don't want to do a slow no. If we're going to do a no, we do a quick no. That's one of my principles in business. So then this way we don't drag on for a long time, and then we also remove any uncertainty or doubt in the community because, as you can see, when the deal was going on, the deal was happening, the crypto was dropping. Uncertainty is actually worse than negative news. So when the news is out, everybody knew, okay, this is where we are. So we said, look, let's announce it as quickly as possible. So we announced it. And then after we announced it, I've been trying to keep quiet to the extent possible. So I didn't appear on any TV interviews, etc. But another very big player going down. A few months ago, there was Luna, 3 Arrows. Luna was big, 3 Arrows was smaller. And then with Celsius, Voyager, they're even smaller. But then FTX is big. So with such a big player going down, I think we're seeing $30-40 billion of value that's in FTX valuation that was before that they raised that, plus quite a few $billion of user funds that's kind of gone. So with this type of events happening, it's devastating for the industry. So a lot of consumer confidence is shaken, and I think basically we've been set back a few years. Now regulators rightfully will scrutinize this industry much harder, which is probably a good thing, to be honest. I think now, before the regulations are much more focused on KYC and AML, I've always been saying, look, you got to focus on the exchange operations. So business models, proof of reserves, where are the user funds? So I think we'll come into a lot more scrutiny on those fronts. But actually, that's good for the industry. So having that setback, short term is very painful for a lot of retail investors. That's on FTX, etc. But we feel that pain. But longer term, I think this is another wake-up call to say, hey, look, we're in a new industry. There's a lot of risks, and we need to learn how to deal with those risks and how to build a much healthier industry. So as one of the largest players in the industry, we have to lead by example. So I think the number one thing we have to do is being much, much more transparent. So anything we can do to increase transparency, we need to do. So proof of reserves. Proof of reserves is going to take a couple of weeks, mainly due to the vendor being very busy. We're like, okay, let's do that, but before that, let's publish all of our cold wallet addresses. They were pretty public before anyway, so we published yesterday 6 top coins, which covers actually 80-90% of our of the user funds. So now people can see on one page which addresses are the cold wallets. Anything that we can do to improve transparency. And I think we also want to educate regulators all around the world. How do you do audits on crypto exchanges? Not just KYC ML, which is important, but how do you check the cold wallets? How do you do user balance reconciliations? How do you check transaction logs? How do you use on-chain monitoring tools to do this? So all of these things we do internally. We do real-time reconciliations across multiple aspects so that we can try to, and if any balance goes off, we get alerted in real time. So should we make those kind of systems public? So I think all of these things we need to do as an industry. On the long term, I think we'll make the industry much healthier. So yeah, all of these things needs to happen. Yeah. I don't think our society is advanced enough to live in a world without rules. So once we have rules, then that's without what regulations are. Somebody have to make some rules. So, but doesn't mean all the rules are good. It doesn't mean all the rules are bad. So good rules are good, bad rules are bad. The rules need to be sensible. If the rule says, hey, we're just gonna ban crypto altogether in Indonesia, that's one type of rule. I think that's obviously going to be bad. If we say anything goes, that's also not so good in general. There will be a lot of scammers, a lot of guys doing business in a bad way and cause a lot of damage. So we need to find the balance. So it's not an easy task. So that's on the regulation side. And then on the crypto side, with people holding their own assets, be their own bank, I think eventually the technology will get there. But today, it's not easy. Today, technically you can. The technology is there, but it's just not easy to use. It's not easy for an average person to say, hey, I'm going to save my private keys, have multiple copies of backups. So if I lose my computer, if I lose my hardware wallet, I can restore it. Worst case is we all die. So if I'm no longer around, how does my kids inherit it? With the tools today, we can do it, but it's just not very easy. 99% of people don't know how to do it. 99% of people probably do not even know how to securely encrypt a USB backup. Right? We need to make the tools easier. Once we have those tools, then more and more, as the tools become easier to use while being very secure, more and more people will shift to that. But today, if you look at the real situation today, the majority of people would be much more comfortable using an email, password, and call customer support if they forget it. And we also have many cases where a person passed away. The next of kin comes with a death certificate. We validate it, wait for a month, just make sure that the guy doesn't come back alive. And then we give the funds to the kin. So today, the majority of people, for the majority of what we call regular, normal people, a centralized exchange is easier to use, even though they have to go through KYC, AML, which is actually quite cumbersome. So we need to transition the industry. The industry improves in incremental steps, not giant leaps forward. Yeah.